It's my greatest pleasure to welcome today the Consul General of India. Maybe we are going to get some help. Adam, can we get some help? See people quite down on the back. Thank you. The Consul General of India, Honorable Prabhu Dayal ji, who is amongst us. Consul General has had a very distinguished record in diplomatic corps of India. He started in ancient civilization of Egypt, and then he moved to Pakistan. From there, I believe he moved to Iran, and before he was a Consul General of Dubai, and then he was appointed as ambassador to Kuwait. That followed some work in the External Affairs Ministry of India, and then he was appointed as an ambassador to Morocco before he was appointed as the Consul General of India in New York, which is a very coveted position. Sometimes it is considered more important than even ambassador's position because New York is the crux of all the activities, international activities. The Consul General is from Allahabad University, where he finishes undergraduate and graduate studies in political science. And he was just mentioning to our Dean, Bill Hogan, that he really enjoyed teaching. And he still misses. And for those of us in this country who teach, and we think we have a very busy life, he was saying it was so comfortable life to teach. And more importantly, he was getting the food at home, which I think he always misses. It is our great pleasure to not only welcome him here as a Consul General of India, but also as his predecessor proposed that the Consul General of India in New York will be ex officio member of the governing board of the Center for Indic Studies. So we have great pleasure to have him as a member of our board of governors. And he's Sir, the Center for Indic Studies mission has been to highlight India's ancient culture and traditions in the United States and throughout the world through academic and scholarly means. Our major focus has been to present indigenous perspective of India, something that has been missing throughout the Western world, not just in the United States. So we take honor in presenting the indigenous perspective of India, whether it be music, performing arts, Ayurveda, yoga, or various Indian philosophies and practices, traditions, cultures. So it is I'm not going to take more time because we obviously all would like to hear what Consul General is going to speak. He obviously has a free topic, whatever he wants to speak, however he wants to speak. He likes to walk around, he said. So he's going to come here so that you all can see. Maybe he will take the microphone and walk around and talk to all of you. That's very personable. We appreciate. Please help me welcome Honorable Prabhu.
My esteemed friend, Dr. Balaram Singh, ladies and gentlemen, and dear students, I'm very honored to have been invited to the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, to speak to such a mixed gathering as this one, comprising students, faculty members, members of the community. And I'm also flattered by the introduction given by Professor Balaram Singh. He called me a distinguished diplomat and spoke about the various places which he said were very important and challenging where I served, and really exalted me to great heights. But whatever he said reminded me of a little story which I must tell you. You know, there was a man who was going to die. But the authorities were not able to decide whether they should send him to heaven or to hell. This was because he was good but not so good as to be sent to heaven. And he was bad but not so bad as to be sent to heaven. So they couldn't figure out, so they said, let us ask him to decide. Let him decide whether he wants to go to heaven or to hell. So he got the choice, but he said, can I see both the places? So they took him to one side and he peeped through the door. That was hell. People were having a great time. There were cafeterias and bars and discotheques and people were really enjoying themselves. So he said, that's very nice, but can I see hell? Can I see heaven? So they took him to the opposite side. And he peeped through the door. And there was a very saintly atmosphere. Everybody was praying, there were priests, and holy people all around. It was indeed a very quiet and peaceful place. So he said, yeah, heaven is nice, but I think I prefer hell. So they took him to the other side and they opened the door and pushed him. And immediately he was grabbed hold of and fried in boiling oil. So he screamed, he said, what's this? You showed me something else. They said, that was the publicity, this is the real thing. So what Professor Singh just now told you was perhaps the work of my publicity agents. And I'm sure that the real thing is always very different. But nonetheless, it's a great honor for me to be here. And it's a very challenging occasion. It's a challenging occasion for a number of reasons. Firstly, because it is my first visit to your university campus, a beautiful campus spread over 700 plus acres. And it's a very rare occasion when I'm speaking to a group of people, including a large group of students, in a cafeteria, where I am facing always the challenge of being outgunned by the wonderful food that is being served from the counter. So I have a daunting task to hold everybody's attention. Secondly, it's a challenging occasion because this evening's function has been organized by the Indic Center. Now the Indic Center stands out in terms of achievements. It has really done so much to promote Indian culture, Indian values, and make it understandable to people what India is all about. So, in the context of what their achievements have been, my task becomes more challenging and difficult. So, for that reason, again, this is a very challenging and unique occasion. But perhaps above all, I would say that this is a challenging occasion because I find in this audience so many members of the Indian American community. There are students from India, there are other members of the community. So I cannot pull a fast one. They would know whether what I'm trying to say is actually reflective of the correct position. So I am in a difficult situation where if I have to say something which is new, it had also better be true. Because if it is new and not true, or true and not new, either way, I am fried in boiling oil. But then the Indian American community, which I see here, and which is present all over the United States, has done really so much to make India better understood. It has built this great bridge of friendship and understanding between India and the United States. Without such a community, India would have been rather misunderstood. But because of them, United States and India have come very close to one another. I see a lot of students here, And their task in the years to come will be to carry forward this work, to continue to build this bridge of understanding between India and the United States. Of course, you know, India is no stranger to America. I was talking with Mike and with Professor Balram Singh during a small meeting that we had. And I was wondering why the center is called the Center for Indic Studies, whereas, you know, the adjective which derives from India is Indian, so it should be the Indian Center. And they pointed out that, you know, Indic is unique, whereas in America, Indian is often taken to denote Native Americans, the Indian Americans, or American Indians. That just shows that in one way or the other, India has always been here. India and America have an umbilical relationship. This is because, do you know why Native Americans are called Indians? I would like the answer from you, sir. You're nodding your head. May I know why Native Americans are called Indians?
Well, it's because Christopher Columbus came to the area around the Bahamas. He thought that he had arrived in the Indies, in the East Indies, when in fact he had arrived in the New World. So he called the people that he met there Indios, but in fact they were Aboriginal Americans.
You're absolutely right. Christopher Columbus, when he landed here on the shores of America, thought that he had landed in India. So he called the people whom he saw Indians. And why did he think that he had landed in India? Because he had actually gone looking for India. So America was discovered by Christopher Columbus because he went looking for India. So there is an umbilical relationship between India and America. Of course, as time flowed by, this relationship could not progress. Because both India and America were colonies. We didn't have our independent foreign policies. America became independent in 1776. But India became independent much later. Can you tell me when India became independent? Now, please, an answer from when did India become independent? Now? A guess here?
No.
1947. India became independent only in 1947. So till before that, we could not have an independent foreign policy. Our foreign policy and external relations were all governed out of London because we were part of the British Empire. When we became independent in 1947, there were certain factors which impeded the growth of Indo-American relations. The relations could not grow as they ought to have been. Now mind you, India and America have a lot in common and are natural friends. On the face of it, we look very different. America is the world's most developed country, India is a developing country. But at the same time, we have things in common. We love our democracies and our democratic traditions. America is the world's oldest democracy. India is the world's largest democracy. And we both hold our democracies as very cherished achievements. We are not willing to give up our democratic systems for anything. But we have other things in common also, not just democracies. And I would like you to tell me what some of those things are. Nana. Ayurveda. Some things which India and America have in common. I would like the answers to come from you.
Non-dual philosophy.
Which philosophy?
Non-dual.
Non-dual philosophies. Any other things? The gentleman at the back, Puro. Yes. Well, we are both secular countries, where we are not governed by one religion. We are secular countries. Some of the other things. The gentleman there, can you tell me some of the things which India and America have in common as two systems, as two polities? We are multicultural. Unity and diversity. Something you can point out? No? Yes?
Overlapping belief systems and religious traditions.
Multi-religious countries. We have different religions existing side by side. Multiracialism. We have different races all mixed up. We are melting pots. So, and we have different languages. In America, there are different languages which are spoken, so also in India. So we are diverse societies, as was said, unity and diversity. We represent different traditions. We have multicultural, multilinguistic, multi-religious, multiracial. So we are societies which are heterogeneous in nature, but which blend together very well. So there is a lot of commonality between our polities. So we should be natural friends. But at the same time, even when India became independent in 1947, our relations could not grow apace as they should have. One factor was the Cold War. The Cold War had broken out after the Second World War, and this impeded the growth of Indo-US relations because of the fact that India was in the non-aligned movement. India was a leader of the non-aligned movement, and somehow this was not perceived as being exactly what American policymakers and American leaders wanted at that time. On the other hand, Pakistan joined CENTO, the Central Treaty Organization. Can somebody tell me what the other members of CENTO were? America? Please. Somebody. Who were the other members of CENTO? Now you know all the answers. And the young lady there. CENTO, Central Treaty Organization, which Pakistan was a member of. No, not China. Anybody this side? Professor Singh? No idea. Patel Saab? The other members were?
Iran and Turkey.
Absolutely right. These were the members of the Central Treaty Organization, and CENTO was an American foreign policy initiative. So here was Pakistan a part of the, systems which were put in place by American foreign policy makers. On the other hand, India was leading a non-aligned bloc. We didn't want to align with either bloc, the Soviet bloc or the NATO bloc. And since we had acrimonious and difficult relations with Pakistan, naturally this became a problem in Indo-US relations. There was another factor which impeded Indo-US relations growing as they should have, and that was the nature of the Indian economy. I would like you to explain this point to everybody. How the nature of the Indian economy at that time prevented the relationship from growing as much as it should have.
Well, it was a socialist economy, and it was centrally planned into many, so that there was not a great deal of emphasis on entrepreneurial relations with kind of free market economies like the United States, and that's what kind of created an obstacle.
Absolutely. The absence of a free market economic system in India, the fact that India was a centralized economy on the socialist model, created a situation where there was an absence of interest amongst American investors in the Indian market, and where the economic relationship just could not grow. But all this changed in the early 1990s. Firstly, the Cold War ended. Secondly, the Indian economy opened up. As you know, at that time the Prime Minister was Mr. Narasimha Rao, the Finance Minister was Dr. Manmohan Singh, who today is the Prime Minister, and he was the architect of opening up the Indian economy and converting it onto the free market pattern. And actually, this began to bring about a change in the manner in which the American corporate sector and American policymakers looked at India. The combination of these two factors, the ending of the Cold War, which no longer made India appear as if it was somehow not aligned in a friendly position with the United States, and the opening up of the Indian economy opened up a new chapter. A barometer of how a relationship is growing is the manner in which high-level visits take place. President Kennedy, I think, visited India in 1961. Then President Carter visited in 1977. A long gap. And then after President Carter, there was no visit for a number of years. And the next president to visit India was who? Louder? Bill Clinton. President Clinton visited India in 2000. The next was to, who visited next? No, before President Obama. President Bush visited in 2006 and President Obama in 2010. So in other words, when President Carter visited in 1977 and then President Clinton visited in 2000, for 23 years there was no presidential visit from the United States to India. And then between 2000 and 2010, there were 3 presidential visits. President Clinton in 2000, President Bush in 2006, and President Obama in 2010. So you can see that the American perspective on India changed, and the level of interest which American foreign policy makers and American leaders were taking in India became radically different. At the same time, if you recall, when President Obama took over, the first state guest to the White House, or the first state level visit to the White House was by who? Anyone at that table? Who was the first state level visitor invited by the Obama administration? Anybody here? Wait, anybody here? Okay, now you give me. The Indian Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh. So the Indian Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, was the first state guest to be invited by the Obama administration. That shows how American interest in India had grown by leaps and bounds. And of course, for making this happen, the Indian American community has played a big role. As I said, the young people here who are present have to continue performing that role because, as I said, India and America are natural friends. We have only to keep on promoting the areas of common interest that we have and increasing our common perspectives. I refer to the visit of Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he spelt the 5 areas which would be the focus of Indo-US relations in the foreseeable future. And he said, these are the 5 E's on which the relationship could be developed in a very meaningful manner. Now, what are the 5 E's? Anybody at that table? Anybody can tell me what the 5 E's are? Yes, madam. Education. Anybody else? But think of which could be the 5 E's? Yes. Employment, okay. Employment becomes a part of what? Economy. The economy. Yes. Environment. So we have got 3 E's, 2 more. Energy. The 5th. Education was done. Education was done. We covered education, energy, economy, employment, which is part of economy. We covered environment, empowerment. Empowerment is a very all-embracing kind of concept which includes employment, because an unemployed sector of the population is not empowered. So the 5 areas which were identified by our Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh to be the planks on which the relationship would grow were the economy, education, empowerment, environment, and energy. The economy speaks for itself, because I think it is now well established that the level of interest which the corporate sector in America is taking in India, and the other way around, has grown manifold. Today, our annual bilateral trade in goods and services is in excess of $100 billion. Indian companies are very active here in America. The entire Tata Group, they have hotels here. Tata Consultancy Services has training centers, one near Cincinnati, which employs a lot of people. There is a lot of concern about the fact that Indian software companies are taking away jobs. But the fact of the matter is, Indian software companies and other companies like the SR Group are creating employment here. They are creating jobs here by investing in America. Then again, we come to the educational area, which was mentioned by you, Madam. Perhaps the largest group of foreign students in the United States is from India. India and China compete very closely for that. We have a very, very large student community. But equally important is the fact that India is now in the process of opening up its education sector. India is in the process of passing a foreign universities bill. This bill is before Parliament. If it gets enacted, it will become an act when foreign universities will be allowed to operate in India, of course within certain parameters and defined rules. But this would open up lots of opportunities for universities like UMass Dartmouth to set up establishments in India and expand the range of activities which they already have. We come to energy. Of course, energy is a defining issue in the development of any economy, and there is always a great, great demand for energy which always outstretches the supply. And that is why it's extremely important that we diversify energy resources. And that's where our 2 countries are devoting their energies, literally, diversifying energy bases, solar, wind, other sorts of biofuels, so that our dependence on fossil fuels can come down. And there is a lot of forward movement in our bilateral research and our bilateral exchanges in this regard, and that all goes very well. Incidentally, to revert back to the issue of education, now India and the United States also have an education summit which takes place in each other's capitals, and where vice chancellors and others who are involved with the academic area confer and see how they can work together. So this is something that UMass Dartmouth should keep in mind also. Then we come to environment. It's a matter of common concern for everybody. There are issues on which India and America differ, but by and large we are now trying to come to common ground. We are trying to narrow down the differences and see how we can work together, because the planet is everybody's inheritance. We have to make sure that we leave the planet quite intact for the next generation, that we have to make sure that the environmental pollution, which is a matter of great concern, can be brought in control, and that there could be sustainable, harmonized development. And finally, we come to the issue which my friend Mr. Gop Gidwani mentioned, empowerment. We are large countries, and of course, there's always the need to make development such that it is inclusive. It includes everybody. And that's only possible when there is greater empowerment. That's only possible again when all communities are financially well equipped to meet their needs, because if they are not, then they cannot be empowered. And we do feel that there is a lot of input that can be derived from each other's experiences, and so we have made it a plank of our bilateral exchanges and an area in which we could work together. Where do we go from here? I think we are seriously engaged in dialogue. India and the United States now have a strategic dialogue, which was unthinkable a decade ago. We have very focused discussions in the economic area. We have the business summits which take place, which involve not just government people, but also leaders from the corporate sector. Certain areas of international politics concern us greatly. We are both very concerned about terrorism. Our discussions on how the menace of terrorism can be curbed have brought us fairly close in our understanding of each other's problems and concerns. America had its 9/11, which really brought about a significant change in thinking here. We had our 26/11, what we call the Mumbai terror attacks, where we underwent carnage, and thereafter there was a significant change in the manner in which we looked at security questions. So both in regard to what has happened and in regard to what is envisaged, we work together. We engage in very constructive dialogue aimed at understanding each other's concerns. We are large countries. We have interests which naturally need not always harmonize, but which can be rationalized. That is the attempt. And as I end, I would like to mention that since my talk is being organized within the framework of the Indic Center, and I was briefed by Professor Balaram Singh on the activities of the center and the fact that you try to bring about a greater understanding of Indian philosophy, let me mention that Indian philosophy teaches you that if you want to go very fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. India and America are going to go far. And that is why we have decided to go together. Thank you. Any questions? Sir, Panditji.
I have listened to you where you have said that terrorism has been one of the factors that have brought India and the United States together. We focus on 9/11, and you focus on 26/11. But before 26/11, there have been a tremendous amount of terrorism in the Kashmir Valley. When are you going to include Kashmir Valley terrorism in the 26/11 as part of the whole terrorism episode?
We've always said that we have been victims of terrorism, whether it's in the Kashmir Valley or elsewhere, and that much of it is, of course, generated from outside our borders. But it was only after 26/11 that our concerns began to be taken more seriously. So the watershed in the perception of the happenings in India, the perception here in the United States, changed after 26/11. As far as the happenings in the Kashmir Valley are concerned and how they are terrorism out and out, was very clear to us, but somehow our perceptions were not that closely held in accountability as now. We always reasoned that there was cross-border terrorism taking place from across our western border. But it's only after 26/11 that our concerns came into sharp focus, and we found here in the United States, the media, public opinion, and everybody more receptive to our point of view.
Thanks for that. Again, on the topic of terrorism, after 9/11, America went on to wage a war on terrorism.
I can't hear you, a little louder. Have you switched on the mic?
Hello? Yeah, you can hear me?
Not too well, no? Your voice is being drowned out by others from across the board. You have to switch on the mic.
Well,
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, after 9/11, America went on to wage a war on terrorism, whereas India's response hasn't been very effective. Why is that?
I think it's your perception, but our response has been absolutely on target. There are a number of measures which have been taken in order to address this problem. And given the size of the country, it's not an easy task. But I can assure you that our response has not been weak or meek.
I hope so. And also, I was very intrigued by the American and Indo relations you were talking about. And I would really appreciate it if you shed a little light on the China perspective of all this.
Well, China is our neighbor. We've had a war with China, 1962. But today China has become our largest trading partner. There is a wide range of activities which are taking place on the economic front as far as India and China are concerned. Lots of Indian companies are manufacturing out of China. Chinese goods are available in plenty in India, as indeed they are everywhere. In America too, China is very visible in the markets. So the economic relationship between India and China has grown apace. There are some political issues which crop up from time to time, but the leaderships of the two countries have time and again announced that it will be their endeavor to build a closer relationship. And let me tell you that the China factor doesn't come in the way of India's engagement with the United States in any manner whatsoever.
Next question. Thank you. Thank you for coming here. One of my biggest questions is I represent the student body here on the campus, and one of the most the biggest question for all the students here are, they come here, they study, but they, most of them don't end up getting jobs. Is there gonna be partly some kind of trade agreement between India and US for students who study here and can have a better experience and get better job opportunities?
Come back to India and get the jobs. There are plenty of great opportunities which have come up in India, and I think we need to have a separate session on that with the student community. Mind you, when you come to study here, the US authorities don't tell you that at the end of your education you will get a job here. That is your perception. You come to enrich yourself and take advantage of the huge opportunities which American universities offer to enrich yourself. But then the understanding is not there that you will be given a job. It's the way you approach the whole thing. What I would repeat is, come back to India and take the jobs. Come back to India and help to enrich your country as you ought to be doing.
Very well said. Thank you. I really like the way you presented that India and US should go far together, and I think that's a very powerful message. Now, since you have been in many countries as Consul General and as diplomat prior to coming to New York, this question is pertaining to your experience in many of those countries. You have seen those countries, and many of them, as I understood from Dr. Singh, are probably what we call the Muslim countries. And we have seen some changes in those countries in recent years. And I'm wondering if you could give a perspective of yours, being seeing them personally, on where we can, or US and India could go together in those countries to make a difference in those countries. Is that possible? Am I thinking completely out of the box here? Or is that part of the equation that you have in mind for going far together?
Any particular country you're referring to?
Not really Iran. So, Egypt, Morocco. You pick. I give you the pick on that.
Well, India stands for respecting the principle of national sovereignty and non-interference in the affairs of a sovereign country. At the same time, we are a democracy and would like to see democracy flourish in other countries too. But we feel that it is the right of the people of that country to carve out their destinies, to choose their system of governance, and to implement that system of governance. So we stand for democracy. At the same time, we stand for non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries. And naturally, the countries which you have mentioned have either gone through periods of upheaval recently, or they are the focus of international attention one way or another. And as a member of the Security Council, we remain in close touch with the United States and with other major players to see how the principles of the United Nations continue to be respected. I can only say that at this moment.
I had a question about education. Being an educator and being very committed to India-centered education at the university level, we have a very big challenge here at UMass Dartmouth. As you know, Hindi is one of the largest languages in the world with respect to the number of speakers, with Bengali or Bangla not too far behind in the count. At the same time, U.S. universities have a very difficult challenge in implementing educational programs that don't just teach in English, but also teach in the native languages of India. So my question is, how is it that we can create these opportunities for language learning that will make possible a cultural learning that cannot happen in English for university students at universities, especially state-run universities where there are less resources? How is it that India might be able to help to make these kinds of programs get off the ground?
Professor, actually I would like you to tell us how India can help. Rather than my telling you how we would like to help, I would like the suggestion to come from you. In fact, I was in a meeting with Mike earlier, your Assistant Chancellor, and with Professor Balram Singh and the Dean of the Faculty of Arts. And we were brainstorming over this idea of how Indian languages could become parts of the curricula. And I was given to understand that Indian studies are already being taught here, and that there is some teaching of Hindi also. How you want to concretize the entire project and how you want to take it forward is up to you to tell us and to suggest how we can help.
I have one suggestion. We have many graduate students here who know many different Indian languages. If we were to give them the tools in pedagogy to teach them how to teach foreign languages, we could give them jobs which help to support them during their graduate studies and also give benefit to our own students in learning these foreign languages.
Thank you, Professor. You have yourself answered the question which you raised. You have given the solution to the problem.
Hopefully we can get the commitment from administration and also from our faculty to make it happen.
You have to convince your faculty and the administration of your needs.
Oh, believe me, I do it every day.
Best of luck.
Ambassador, we will send you a proposal.
But I'm not part of your administration. Yes.
I'd like to make a comment, get your feedback on the exchange between the U.S. and India with respect to philosophical issues and contemplative practices. As you know, in the United States, yoga and meditation are practiced by about between 5 and 10% of the population. It's become very popular, and in fact, on Easter Sunday, in the celebrations at the White House, yoga is practiced on the White House lawn. On the other side, India has been very infatuated with a lot of American technological advances, and I often joke that there's an inequity here that India has given the United States these deep contemplative practices of yoga and meditation, and Indians have taken from the US Coca-Cola and blue jeans. So, and I'm wondering your perspective on that.
I think, it's a misstatement and a misinterpretation of the relationship to think that India takes away only blue jeans and Coca-Cola from the United States. We take away a lot of good values. To go back in time, when we established our Constitution, a lot of the inspiration came from the American Constitution. And the founding fathers of the Indian Republic took away a lot of lessons from the United States, and these lessons were rooted in your democratic traditions. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So, it is very heartening to note that there is a high level of interest, for instance, in yoga. I have here to my right Ambassador Bhandari. Would you please stand up, Ambassador Bhandari? Ambassador Bhandari is a distinguished ambassador who retired from the Foreign Service and served as ambassador in the UAE, as ambassador in Poland. He was also Consul General in Toronto and has been a very dear colleague. He is a great practitioner of yoga. Actually, the correct term is yoga and not yoga, as he himself pointed out to me long ago. And there are people like him who are carrying the message of Indian culture, philosophy, traditions as part of yogic instruction. And believe me, when I retire, I'm going to be his disciple. He is building a great ashram in the Himalayas. And while Indian values are brought by people like him and by people like you and others, at the same time, the strengths of American thinking, multiculturalism, respect for traditions, respect for secularism, and so on and so forth are also analyzed, appreciated, and understood in India. So, to put it in a nutshell, our appreciation of what we get from America goes way beyond blue jeans and Coca-Cola. I think I have a community meeting. I have to meet some leaders in the community. My meeting was supposed to be 7:30, but if you will bring the, okay, young gentleman.
How do you feel towards India and American foreign exchange students and towards that kind of thing?
India and America? Foreign exchange? Well, for somebody whose pockets are always empty, foreign exchange is not an issue. But let me tell you that in 1991, our foreign exchange reserves had virtually disappeared, and we were having to pledge our gold reserves. Student exchange? Oh, I thought you were talking about foreign exchange, which normally denotes your reserves and dollars and euros and SDRs, special drawing rights and so on. Student exchanges, yes, of course, there is a lot of exchange on that front. I see a lot of young Indian students who are here. There are not as many American students who go, but there are a lot of people who go for voluntary work and to participate one way or another in the Indian education system. So the exchanges are picking up, and we hope to have you sometime there. Which grade are you in? You're going to be entering in the 8th grade. So make the next 5-6 years of your life very, very, shall I say, demanding on yourself, and be positioned then to go and be part of an exchange program with India, because only when you have been able to develop your own innate capabilities fully can you contribute more meaningfully to an exchange program. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear students, thank you so much. Whenever you come to New York, do look me. Thank you.
Let me thank the Consul General and our very small token of appreciation. I don't have something to put in his pocket, but I have brought a bag. Thank you so much. As the Consul General said that he has some very important meetings. Obviously, he has to listen to the community, so he's going to skip dinner, but he might be here for a few minutes for those of you who might like to say a few words to him, and then dinner is almost ready. So thank you very much. Thank you, Consul General. Thank you all. And enjoy.